Hey, what's up, Agents for Life? Welcome, the warmest welcome I could possibly muster up for you for being here. So glad you're here. Welcome to podcast number 275. We're going to talk about a somewhat unpleasant subject, something that a lot of IMOs don't really talk much about. They kind of avoid it. It's a very real part of our business. It's kind of might feel a little negative, but I'm going to empower you with some knowledge and some tools and some approaches to help make this uncomfortable topic something very normal and okay, right? So we're going to be talking about chargebacks in case you haven't figured it out. But before we do, the mic drop thought for the week. What are you doing with what you're learning? What are you doing with what you're learning? Okay. The reason I asked that question, I want to get your brain going. Self help is great, shelf help is not, right? We take a book, we read it, we stick it on the shelf, we do nothing, we do the next one. Shelf has a lot of valuable information. Our brains, it was just a pass through. Okay. It's great to read, but what are you doing with what you're learning? Far better to take one little thing, take a nugget, and implement it into your routine, into your presentation, into your dial session, into your day, than to read 100 things and not do anything with any of them. And I think as humans, we have a tendency to go seek after knowledge, but it's much tougher to implement the knowledge. Okay, wisdom is knowledge implemented. So if you're not implementing, you're not exercising that knowledge. It's just shelf help. It's not self help. So be wise and take nuggets and just even one or two. You watch a presentation or a training, the DRT is so full of such good stuff, and you write down 500 things you want to do tomorrow, and guess how many of them you actually do? Our brain goes into overwhelm mode and we do nothing. Pick one and just start doing that one thing. Okay. The rest you can get to later. But I think I love that topic because I'm actually speaking to myself. I have a little bit of that ADD, crazy mind, right? Squirrel, monkey brain, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, sometimes it's hard just to say, you know what? I'm going to pick something and go after it, go all in on this, and then get good at it, and then pick something else. That's how we learn over time. It's just slowly, nugget by nugget. So, what are you doing with what you're learning? Love that question. I hope you can just chew on that for a little bit. But let's dive into the topic at hand. Okay. Chargebacks. Okay. When you were little, let's go back in time. When you were just a little, 6, 7 years old, and you start losing your teeth. Okay. Stick them under your pillow at night. You know where I'm going, right? Guess who comes? It's this magical thing for little kids. I can still remember. You wake up the next morning, you're all excited, lift the pillow up, and there's a quarter, or, if you're little, you can get away with that. But if you're a little bit older, you're like, a quarter, come on, or a dollar, sometimes $5. I've seen some parents get kind of tooth fairies. I've seen some tooth fairies get real generous, okay, with their offerings. But we're not dealing with the tooth fairy here. We're dealing with the chargeback fairy. Okay, chargeback fairy works a little differently. A chargeback fairy doesn't come and leave money. A chargeback fairy comes and takes money. Okay, so that's why we have to be careful because we don't want the chargeback fairy visiting us, or if we do, as little as possible. All right. So that said, here's all the steps, everything you need to know about chargebacks, okay, and how to avoid them and what to do if and when, I should say when, because if you're in this business for any period of time, you're going to have them, how to handle them, how to make them a regular part of what you do. Okay. All right. So strap in, grab a pen if you want, write this stuff down. But number one, there is no 100% way to avoid chargebacks. They're going to happen unless you write like one policy and quit and that policy happens to stay on the books. If you get lucky, like you might have, if you're in motion and stay in motion, or if you make this a regular career for any period of time, you're going to have chargebacks. So when you get them, don't think something's wrong. Okay. A chargeback is simply somebody who canceled their policy within the chargeback period. They changed their mind, they lost a job, they let it lapse, maybe it didn't bill right, something happened on their bank account, any number of things, not enough funds, insufficient funds. There's a lot of ways a policy can charge back. You owe that money. The carriers give you that money in advance, and you owe whatever's remaining back to them. So here's a couple of my thoughts and my suggestions after 6 years of being in the business and my fair share of chargebacks. Okay, here we go. So, number one, first of all, how much is an acceptable amount of chargebacks? Okay. I would say between 5 and maybe up to 10% is going to be pretty normal. If you're getting a higher percentage than 10 of chargebacks, you want to go take a closer look at your at how you're writing business. Okay. If you're getting around 5, you're doing really well. Nobody, very few people are going to get down below 5. Certainly not 0. There's going to be something, but 5 to 10, I think, would be an average range. And the better you can do, pat yourself on the back. It's awesome. It means you're writing quality business. And here's what I really would emphasize. If you're getting a lot of chargebacks, look at how you're presenting and what you're trying to get your clients to do. Okay, everybody has a budget, right? And there's a pride thing when somebody signs up. You got a husband and wife, and you got small, medium, large, right? And the husband's like, "Yeah, let's go big. I got a princess to protect or a queen of the castle. We got to keep her safe, right? Let's do the big one." Okay. And yeah, it turns out it's not a good idea. 3 months later, they get a flat tire and they can't afford everything, and something's got to go. Let's lose the life insurance. So be careful when you're presenting and you're showing pricing. If somebody isn't convinced that they are 100% comfortable with that premium, back them down. Okay. Don't try and oversell. You're going to get bigger commission if you increase the premium, get a smaller commission if you don't, right? We all get it. But if you always just do the right thing for the client, the money will take care of itself. So sacrifice a bigger commission. If somebody's on the fence, bring them down. Why? Because it's so much better to have a policy that stays on the books, that's smaller because it's affordable, than to get a big one that cancels because it turns out they can't afford it after all. So watch the budget, talk about their income. I like to ask a couple of different ways. Is this comfortable for you guys? Yeah, I want it to be a price that you won't miss it when it comes out every month. And you know what? By the way, everybody's different. Some people, 200 or 300 bucks a month, wouldn't even bat an eye. And you might be going, "Whoa, that's an expensive policy." It's not about you, it's about them. So you can look at their income, and we should always be asking on their appointments about their income, and you can make some logical conclusions. This looks a little pricey, or oh, totally. These guys are making bank, so this could be very comfortable for them. So look at everything. Be a responsible fiduciary. Takes us back to our days when we got our license, right? That big fiduciary word. Be a responsible agent and help them make a good financial decision, because something is better than nothing. If they get into a policy and cancel it in 2 or 3 months, guess what? They go from having some coverage to 0. So it's better to have something than nothing. Okay, so second thing is to preventing it is slow down. You want to build value in your presentation. Sometimes we skim through the presentation trying to get to pricing, close, because we got to move on because we got 8 more appointments today and we're just churning and burning, right? Well, your clients experience that little window that you give them, that little churn and burn window. And if there's not enough value created, then a month or two after you wrote the policy, it's easy for them to not feel how important it is. Here's the thing about life insurance. It's not sexy. You don't go on vacation with it. You don't have any memories. There's nobody sits around, brings up their life insurance and takes a picture for the family photo album. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't help you lose weight. There's no immediate benefit, right? Other than peace of mind, knowing that someday in the future, when I'm dead and gone, somebody else is sure going to be glad that I did this. That's really kind of an odd product, right? So we have to make that emotional connection with them during the sale, because otherwise it gets tossed in a drawer, starts collecting dust, and there's really no connection with it. So we have a 45-minute window, hour window, whatever that is, to make it important to them. And then being a good agent and being in the service industry, following up with them every year or two to connect and remind them of why it's important and what it's going to do for their family. Okay. So building that value will help them prioritize. People have money. It's just a matter of priority. So if they're cutting back on things and they're coming down to, here's a list of things we can cut, and they're looking at that $192 a month on that life insurance policy, and they're like, Yeah, that's probably going to go. But I'm going to keep my cable bill. Why? Because I like those, those ball games in the evenings. Well, there's a priority problem right there, right? So build the value so that they will prioritize life insurance on top of some of the other niceties of life or the luxuries. Um, Let's see. The next one, if it does happen. So sometimes, as much as you try and prevent a policy by building value and putting them in an accurate, good price for their budget, it still happens. People lose a job. I don't know, any number of things can happen where we didn't see that coming. Okay. Well, if and when it happens, there are some things you can do. So, first of all, don't assume that they just lost a job or they can't afford it. Sometimes people's billing, has a problem. Sometimes there's not enough funds. Sometimes the bank returns it for some reason, or they changed their account and forgot to update it with the carrier. So call the client. Okay. Again, you're in the service industry. These clients are counting on you. This is the stuff you don't get paid for, but we get paid very well otherwise. So be a good agent, be responsible, do what you would want your agent to do to you and say, hey, I'm just letting you know the policy. I got a notice from the carrier. Can we get this fixed? And I'm here to help you, right? A lot of times the client doesn't even know, and they're happy that you called and you can get it fixed, no chargeback. Awesome. So try that first. Okay. If you call them, they're like, no, we don't want it anymore. We changed our minds. We don't need it. I got laid off, whatever. It's got to go 100%. Okay. Perfect. Now, the next things that you can do is number one, write another policy. Okay. So if it's with a certain carrier, you're going to want to lean toward that one because that new policy will just cover up the chargeback that you have. No need to pay it back. It'll just cover up on the next commission. If you're a manager and you're getting overrides, that's awesome. It's another layer of protection. Those can also pay back your chargeback. And in worst case scenario, you're not writing that carrier anymore, or you don't have any trails going on with that carrier. You want to call the carrier and work out some kind of a payment plan. Doesn't mean you have to write a huge check, but they do need to hear from you. Okay, carriers want to know that you care. So if you have a chargeback that does have to be paid back, they don't expect you to write a big check. They'll work with you, but they're going to have a hard time working with you if you're not communicating. So just like when you push a ball down under the water, it gets the resistance grows, right? Until you can't push it any further and it's coming up, and when it comes up, it's a splash. Okay, if you ignore this problem and push it deeper and deeper, set it aside. It is going to come back and bite you in the butt. So please, whatever you do, don't ignore it. Call the carriers, let them know that you're trying, you're working on it. They'll work with you, but they won't work with you if you don't talk to them. You can even call and talk to your upline, right? So work something out. Just don't, by all means, just don't ignore a chargeback. When you get a notice from a carrier, they gave you an advance in good faith that if something should happen on that policy before the 9 or the 12-month mark, or whenever that advance is good for, then you owe that money back rightfully. Okay, it's the right thing to do. It's technically not your money at first. Now, most cases it will remain your money, and it'll turn out to be that way because chargebacks again are going to be just a small percentage. But be a decent human being. Okay, we have core values: respect, ownership. You've got to be the person you would want somebody else to be to you. Okay, and take that charge back and pay it back. Get on a payment plan, something, and get it taken care of. So that's it. Chargebacks are not a naughty word. It's not a dirty word. It's not a swear word. It is part of our industry. If you look in retail, you're going to have a certain percentage of people with buyer's remorse. They just return the product. They change their mind. It happens. Okay, so it's normal. If you're just getting a lot of it, then you want to pay attention. But if you're getting just a little bit, you're just like the rest of us. Just make sure that you're doing some of these tips so that it doesn't come back and bite you in the butt and prohibit your ability to get new contracts. It could even turn into legal issues down the road and credit issues if you ignore this problem. So be a responsible person, go through all those steps. A lot of times you can get out of the chargeback, you can reverse it, you can get it corrected or taken care of in a lot of different ways. Put this advice to work in case you do get chargebacks, or when you do get chargebacks, you can remain a good, solid agent, not only for your team, for your clients, and for the IMO that you work for. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and I will talk to you next week.